Khomeini, 1979. You probably don't remember that in 1979 because you were born. 1979 is the Iran hostage crisis, where some college students your age took hostage some Americans who were probably doing CIA work trying to subvert the Iranian Revolution that had happened in 1979, kept them hostage, and this was the kind of a crisis that we had, right? But I'm just saying, in terms of demonic, you can't get much more demonic than that. Now, did that create a big uproar in the Islamic world? I don't think so. I don't think so, for a variety of reasons, perhaps. On the other hand, I must admit, my limitation, I do not have access to Islamic cartoons of Western cartoons. I've seen one book, I've got an Egyptian book of cartoons, they're very violent in comparison. So I don't know how the other side depicts this, but in a sense, from the Western side, this is the sort of demonization, which you find the demonization of Islamic terrorists, becomes rampant, but it goes back quite a ways. Now, you might say, is this the same? More of the same. Can you see here's a religious figure who's pulling the strings of Shiite militia, pulling the strings of. But the date, April 6, 2004. Continuity, it seems to me, is the continuity of how the demonization of clerics, manipulators, and so forth, with particular emphasis on Iran. Now look at that. This is even more recent. June 2007. You can't get much more, much more graphic in depicting evil powers than Iran. But not just Iran, I'm saying, but Iran in some ways is a surrogate. Okay. So what I was here to suggest is that there has been a whole history, in a sense, of cartoons, of which, in some ways, the Danish cartoons is the last in the series. Now, let me see, now, I mentioned that the Danish cartoons were published initially in September 2005. And what happened was that a group of clerics who happened to be in Denmark, who were imams, in charge of services, but who were not born in Denmark, because there were very few who came that were born in Denmark, but who came from, or they may have come from the Middle East, sent by, in a sense, funds from Saudi Arabia, so on and so forth. These imams found these cartoons, in a sense, took these cartoons, and about the same time, or shortly thereafter, by fax from France came some cartoons that showed Muhammad in even worse light than what these cartoons, which I will show you now shortly, showed. Turned out that they were fake, the ones that came from France. The one that showed, for example, the Prophet Muhammad with a pig's face. Now, you cannot think of a worse injury for a Muslim than to have the Prophet shown with a pig's face. Right? Turns out that fact was a fake. But the Imams took these cartoons and went to the Middle East and showed them to a variety of people. And then there was a conference of Islamic states later on in December and 2005. And then in 2006, in February 2006, it really erupted because it was spread out throughout the Islamic world. It really erupted and had a tremendous unleashing of anger, of emotions, of several embassies being fired upon, of flags. I mean, it was just an outpouring. Durkheim, those of you who have bothered to read Durkheim, the elementary form, which is know about collective effervescence. But the outpouring of such emotions and intensity is also a certain kind of collective effervescence of the whole world, in a sense, being greatly agitated or whatever. So, well, let's take a look very quickly at these cartoons. The paper, February 10th, 2006, that originally came out in September. Here are all the 12 cartoons, and I'll go very quickly. Here's the first one. Unfortunately, it does not come out very well, but here you have the Prophet greeting warriors who have fallen right into heaven and saying, "Stop, we have run out of virgins." Right? I apologize for the quality of the thing that you count this way, but and here's the Prophet with again, with a sword. It's this, and then the subjugation of women, Muslim women is what. And then here's the one that really got, in some ways, the Islamic world completely incensed. Is to show the Prophet as carrying what do you call it, time bomb. Everything wrong. It's not to explode the Prophet. To me, it's sort of interesting that the sacred figure for Christianity is Jesus. And there's been, in some ways, in progressive art, the vilest depiction of Jesus. But like in the Brooklyn Museum of Art a couple of years ago and things like that, the vilest things. In some ways, it's hard to understand why, not only why is that allowed, but why isn't there the equivalent of a fatwa declared against persons who depict Jesus in urinals and so on and so forth. Okay, I mean, on a comparative basis, I'm trying to say that at least for traditional Christians, if you had something like this 100 years ago, 200 years ago, whoever did that I don't think would live very long, would be or excommunicated, something like that. But in the sense, it's an extent of secularization. Whereas in the Islamic world, there is still, I think, the strong cohesion around one of the most, although Muhammad is not a deity, but the Prophet is the. Well, you might also imagine. I mean, if we depicted, if there were depictions of, I don't know, Jeremiah, Isaiah, and so on as pimps or whatever, whatever, I think there would be outrages expressed in many So I'm just trying to give a feel for why that particular one in particular generates one. And then more, more of all this of caricature, cartoons. Here's, I think, the prophet, one travels